My cousin moved into the apartment I inherited before I could even get the keys, then claimed I gave it to her out of love, while my mom and aunt backed her up and called me unstable for wanting it back. I was homeless for weeks, working double shifts while she posted party pics from my living room, wearing my clothes and sleeping in my bed. When I took her to court, my own family cried to the judge about how I was tearing the family apart over just some furniture. They had no idea I documented everything and that I wasn't just getting my home back. I was going to make sure they never forgot what they did to me. Hey, before we move on to the video, please subscribe to the channel and hit the like button. Thanks. I guess I always knew my family didn't love me the way they said they did. But when they made me homeless just to give my apartment to my cousin, it was the first time I truly understood just how disposable I was to them. Let me start from the beginning. I, 23, grew up in a family where keeping the peace meant swallowing your pride, your anger, your truth. My parents weren't violent or screaming types, they were colder than that. If I ever pushed back, even gently, I'd get met with silence, a withdrawn look, or the classic, "I'm disappointed in you" line that made me feel about 2 inches tall. Meanwhile, my cousin Sasha could do no wrong. She's my mom's niece, and since my mom and her sister are closer than twins, Sasha was basically their second daughter. She and I are only 6 months apart in age, but we couldn't have been more different. I was the quiet one, the one who got decent grades, didn't drink, never skipped school, helped with chores. Sasha partied through high school, got caught shoplifting once, and crashed her first car within 6 months. But she was pretty and charming and good at making adults feel special. So she always got the benefit of the doubt. I, on the other hand, was invisible until someone needed something. I survived high school by staying out of the way and planning my escape. College wasn't in the cards financially, so I worked retail and took online courses at night. It was grueling, but it was freedom. And then, like a miracle, something happened that felt like the universe finally noticed me. When I was 22, my great-aunt Margaret passed away. She wasn't super close to the rest of the family. She was my dad's aunt, kind of reclusive, and lived in a tiny one-bedroom apartment about 30 minutes away from us. But she liked me. I used to help her run errands or just sit with her and listen to her old stories while my parents rolled their eyes. She called me steady, which I always liked. She left me her apartment. It wasn't big or fancy, but it was mine. A place of my own, no roommates, no screaming toddlers, no passive-aggressive silence at dinner. I cried the day I got the keys. For the first time in my life, I could breathe. I moved in, got a second job nearby, and turned the little place into something cozy and personal. I painted the walls, added cheap curtains from a thrift store, even started a little herb garden on the windowsill. It wasn't much, but it was peace. I finally had a door I could lock from the inside, a bed that no one else sat on, and a space where I didn't have to tiptoe around people's moods. 6 months later, that all got taken from me. It started with a text from my mom that just said, "We're stopping by with Sasha tonight. Just need to chat. Don't worry, it's nothing bad." Already, alarm bells were going off in my head. My parents never visited. They barely even acknowledged my new place beyond a single awkward comment like, "Hope you're remembering to clean behind the toilet." Still, I said okay. I had no reason to think I was about to be ambushed. That night, my parents showed up with Sasha in tow, looking miserable and dramatic, like they were about to stage an intervention. Sasha was crying, not full tears, but that sniffly, mascara-smudged kind of crying that looks good on Instagram. I invited them in, offered them tea, and sat across from them in my little IKEA living room. What happened next still feels like a bad dream. My dad cleared his throat and said, "Honey, we wanted to talk to you about something important. Sasha's in a really tough spot. Her lease ended unexpectedly, and her roommates kicked her out. She doesn't have anywhere to stay right now, and it's just not safe for her to be bouncing around. She's struggling with her anxiety again." I nodded, slowly. "I'm sorry to hear that. Is she staying with Aunt Carla?" Mom shook her head, already irritated. "Carla can't. She's got her own stuff going on, and Sasha needs stability. We were thinking, maybe you could let her stay here. Just for a few months. Just until she gets back on her feet." I looked at Sasha. She wasn't even looking at me, she was scrolling her phone. I said, as gently as I could, "I don't think that would work. I have 2 jobs. I sleep odd hours. It's a small place." Mom blinked like I'd slapped her. "You have a 1-bedroom to yourself. Don't you think it's a bit selfish not to help your own cousin when she's practically homeless?" "She's not homeless," I said carefully. "She has a family. She has other options. I worked really hard to make this place safe for me. I'm sorry, but I can't. The energy in the room shifted hard. Sasha looked up and said, flatly, wow, that's cold. Dad said, we didn't raise you to be this stingy. I wanted to scream, but I didn't. I just asked them to leave. They didn't fight me. They got up and left with an uncomfortable silence, like I had disappointed them on a cosmic level. Sasha slammed the door as she walked out. I didn't hear anything for a few days. I assumed they were just licking their wounds, talking about how ungrateful I was behind my back. I tried to shake it off. I went to work. I cleaned. I told myself I had a right to this space, that I had finally drawn a line. And then, 4 days later, I came home from a long shift, and my key didn't work. At first, I thought maybe the lock was just jammed. I tried again, then rang the doorbell. Nothing. I called my mom. She answered, all breathy and casual. Oh good, you're there. Sasha moved in this morning. We had the locks changed. She's already asleep. She's been through a lot. We'll give you your things once she's settled. I stood there in disbelief, holding my grocery bags. I said, you can't be serious. That's my apartment. My mom said, and I swear I remember every word, don't be dramatic. It was a family gift. You should be proud to help someone who's struggling. Then she hung up. I stood in front of my own apartment door with bags of groceries digging into my fingers, too stunned to cry, too angry to speak. The cheap hallway light buzzed faintly overhead while I stared at the lock that no longer belonged to me. I knocked. No answer. I knocked harder, then pounded. Nothing. I must have stood there for 15 minutes before some elderly neighbor cracked their door open and said, you okay, hon? I just shook my head, whispered something like, wrong apartment, and walked away. I drove aimlessly for hours that night. Called a couple friends, but it was late, and I couldn't even form the words. Ended up parked behind a grocery store, sitting in my car with my head against the steering wheel, crying so hard I gave myself a headache. Everything in that apartment was mine. My clothes, my documents, my laptop, my photos, even my mattress. And just like that, they'd given it away. Like I was a squatter who didn't deserve to be there in the first place. The next morning, I tried to go back. Same result. I knocked, rang the bell, even called my mom again. This time she didn't answer. I finally called the property management company, the small firm that handled Great Aunt Margaret's building. They weren't very helpful at first. The apartment had been inherited, but technically it was still under my great aunt's name. The deed was in the middle of being transferred to me. My name hadn't officially been recorded with the county yet. The woman on the phone sounded sympathetic, but she said, unfortunately, we can't do much unless there's a police report or an official eviction filed. Until your name is on the title, we can't recognize you as the legal owner. I asked her who had changed the locks. Someone claiming to be a family member with power of attorney, she said. I nearly screamed. Margaret had been dead for months. There was no more power of attorney. They forged something or lied outright. I tried the police next. I explained everything, how the apartment was part of an inheritance, how I had lived there for 6 months, how someone had changed the locks without my consent. The officer shrugged. It's a civil matter. Sounds like a property dispute. You'll have to go through the courts. In 1 week, I had gone from independent young adult with my own apartment to a woman living out of her car. I reached out to Aunt Carla. She gave me the same passive-aggressive nonsense as my parents. Honey, I know it feels unfair, but Sasha really needed the help. You've always been the strong one. She's fragile. We're just asking you to step up for the family. By making me homeless? Don't exaggerate. You can come stay with your parents for a while. No, I said. No, I can't. Because going back there, back to the silence, the judgment, the guilt-tripping would have destroyed me. I would have lost whatever was left of myself. I crashed with my friend Holly for a few days. She was a saint. Let me sleep on her couch and even helped me make some calls. But she had roommates, and it wasn't sustainable. I tried sleeping in my car after that. Just for 2 nights. It was early spring, not freezing yet, but still brutal. I had to keep the windows cracked for air but was terrified someone would break in. I couldn't sleep. I just lay there, arms crossed, hoodie up, eyes wide open, feeling like I was shrinking into nothing. Meanwhile, Sasha posted selfies from my apartment. I saw them on Instagram. Her, lounging on my thrifted couch. Her, making smoothies in my kitchen. One post said, finally have my own space for healing. Hashtag mental health journey, hashtag fresh start. I wanted to throw my phone at a wall. A few days later, I got an email from property management. They'd received several complaints from neighbors about noise and smells. Apparently, there were parties, loud music at all hours, and some reports of marijuana smoke. They were reviewing the situation and would follow up if lease violations were confirmed. I tried to explain that I wasn't the one living there anymore. They said, "You're still listed as the heir. Any property damage incurred may still be your legal responsibility." I was being held liable for damages caused by someone who stole my apartment. I went to a free legal clinic the next day, nearly in tears. The woman there was kind but blunt. "You're going to need a real attorney. This is going to get ugly." I started calling every lawyer I could find. Most didn't return my calls. A few quoted me thousands of dollars for a consultation. I nearly gave up until I found someone who agreed to meet with me for free. His name was Colin, and he was young, maybe early 30s, sharp, a little rough around the edges. I laid everything out in his office, all the texts, the Instagram screenshots, the property paperwork, the inheritance letter from my great-aunt's will. When I was done, he leaned back in his chair and said, "This is the most outrageous crap I've heard all month. And I handle divorces, so that's saying something." I laughed. For the first time in days, Colin took my case pro bono. He said what my family had done was blatantly unlawful possession of inherited property and unauthorized occupancy. I might not be on the official deed yet, but the will was legally binding, and the transfer had already been initiated with the county. "This is theft," he said. "We can file to evict them and sue." He helped me file a cease and desist that same day. We served it to the apartment within 48 hours. Sasha posted about it on Facebook. "Can't believe some people would rather see me on the street than show compassion. God sees everything." She included a selfie of her looking sad next to a packed suitcase inside my living room. I got a text from my mom. "You're really going to tear this family apart over a stupid apartment? This is disgusting." And then, a few hours later, "You think you're better than us? You'll regret this." No, I knew I was better than them, because I would never have done to anyone what they had done to me. The eviction notice was served on a Monday morning. Colin made sure it was done officially, with proper documentation, process servers, the works. I imagined Sasha opening the door in my robe, phone in hand, fake startled expression on her face, and I hoped, just for a moment, that she felt even a fraction of the fear and humiliation she had caused me. I wasn't allowed to return yet. The lawyer made that clear. "Let the process work," Colin said. "Don't show up. Don't call her. Don't try to get your stuff. Everything has to go through the court now." It killed me. Everything I owned was still in that apartment. I'd heard from a neighbor that Sasha had brought in her friends and one of their dogs. My place wasn't pet-proofed. It was barely big enough for one person. I had dreams, nightmares, of that stupid little dog tearing apart my mattress, pissing on my rug, knocking over my herb planters, clawing up the books I'd had since high school. And I could do nothing but wait. While the eviction worked through the court, my family went on a full-blown smear campaign. It started on Facebook, then bled into church gossip, then phone calls from relatives I hadn't seen in years. My mom made a post about how some people will step on their own blood to chase status, and how mental health isn't taken seriously in our culture anymore. People were commenting things like "praying for you," and "you've done so much for your kids, don't let evil steal your light." A cousin messaged me directly to ask why I was suing the family over furniture. Furniture. That's what my home had been reduced to. I tried to stay above it. I kept my head down, worked my shifts, stayed at Holly's until I could move into a cheap sublet room with a couple grad students. It was loud and tiny, but it had a door and a lock, and no one else's cousin was living in it. That made it paradise. Meanwhile, Colin moved fast. He filed a motion for immediate possession of the property, citing unlawful occupancy, fraud, and inheritance interference. He also filed a civil suit for damages and emotional distress. It was a long shot, he said, but it would give us leverage. Then came the hearing. Sasha didn't even show up. My aunt came instead, wearing all black like she was attending a funeral. They claimed I had offered the apartment to Sasha during a heart-to-heart, weeks earlier. "That's not even a lie," I told Colin. "That's straight fiction." Colin nodded. "Let her talk." My aunt wept. Literally wept on the stand, saying Sasha was in crisis, that I was unstable, that I had always been a loner, and that the family was just trying to keep me connected. Colin, bless him, tore it all down with cold, simple facts. He presented the will, the deed in process, the original letter from the executor stating I was the sole inheritor. Then he dropped the bomb, Screenshots of Sasha's social media posts, the parties, the selfies in my apartment, the captions about her new life. The judge, an older man with sharp eyes and no patience, asked if this was truly her residence. Why would she be posting about it as a fresh start? That implies she hadn't lived there before. Which is it? My aunt stammered. Tried to pivot to emotional appeals. Didn't work. The judge ruled in my favor. Immediate repossession. Court-ordered eviction. Sasha had 72 hours to vacate the apartment. Colin and I stood in the parking lot afterward, silent for a moment. Then he said, "You're getting it back. But prepare yourself. It's probably wrecked." He was right. When I walked through the door, finally, with my own key, legally in possession, I almost didn't recognize it. Trash everywhere. Stains on the carpet. Dog hair. Scratches on the wall. My books were gone. The herb planters were smashed on the floor. My mattress was flipped up against the wall, torn open at the seams. Someone had left food, takeout containers, rotting in the sink. Flies swarmed. The air smelled like mold and sour milk. My hands were shaking, not with rage, with grief. It was like someone had killed a part of me and left the corpse to rot in the sun. I spent the whole day cleaning, scrubbing, tossing things into garbage bags. At one point, I had to sit down in the hallway and just sob because there was dried dog feces on the floor of what used to be my sanctuary. But I didn't stop. Over the next few weeks, I rebuilt. I used money from my second job to replace the mattress. Friends donated furniture. Holly gave me a little coffee table she didn't need. Colin's wife sent over some used cookware. Bit by bit, I took my space back. Repainted the walls. Replaced the curtains. Replanted the herbs. Every change felt like revenge. Quiet, private revenge. Not fire and fury. Just a firm, you don't get to win. And then, I posted my own photos. I didn't tag anyone. Didn't even say names. But I posted a before and after of my apartment with a caption, "6 months ago, someone stole my home. Today, I took it back." Never let guilt make you small. Never let family convince you that your survival is selfish. The post blew up. Friends I hadn't heard from in years messaged me. People asked what had happened. Some shared their own stories about siblings stealing inheritances, parents sabotaging their independence, cousins squatting in their apartments. Turns out, there are a lot of us. A few distant relatives reached out and apologized. Quietly, privately. Some offered to help repair the damages. I declined. Then came the kicker. One afternoon, I was finishing a new shelf I'd built when someone buzzed the front door. It was my mom. I didn't answer. She buzzed again and again. Then she knocked on the main door, then called me 3 times. Finally, I picked up. "You need to hear me out," she said. "No, I really don't. Sasha's been evicted from her new place. Carla can't take her. We're being foreclosed on. Everything is falling apart. Can we please talk?" I was quiet for a long time. Then I said, "You made me homeless for her. You chose her comfort over my survival. And now you want me to fix it. We didn't know it would turn out this way. You didn't care." There was a long silence on the other end. "I miss you," she said, her voice small for the first time. "I don't," I said, and hung up. Then I locked the door and went back to my shelf. For the first time in months, I slept without waking up in the middle of the night. No phantom knocks. No anxiety dreams about Sasha changing the locks again. No phone calls from my mother, asking me to play family therapist while she held the matchbook that set my life on fire. It was quiet. I still had a long way to go. The civil case was ongoing, but Colin was optimistic. He told me the evidence was overwhelming: documented property theft, unlawful entry, social media self-incrimination, and the damage to the apartment, all of which I had carefully photographed before cleaning. More than anything, I wanted them to feel it. Not just legally, emotionally. I wanted them to understand what they'd done, not with some performative, "I'm sorry you feel that way," but with real, bone-deep regret. I didn't expect it, but a few weeks later, I got it. Not from Sasha. From Carla. She showed up at my apartment without warning. I almost didn't answer. But I did, more curious than angry by that point. She looked older, more tired. Her makeup was thinner, her hair pulled back instead of blown out like usual. No dramatic entrance this time. Just a small woman holding a plain envelope. "I'm not here to fight," she said. "Just to say something." I crossed my arms and stood in the doorway. She looked around, taking in the freshly painted walls, the new shelves, the faint smell of basil from the windowsill planter. You did a nice job, she said quietly. It looks like yours again. It is mine. She nodded, looked down at the envelope, then up at me. I didn't know everything Sasha did. I knew she moved in, sure. I supported that. I thought it was temporary. I thought you had other options. Your mom said you'd offered it to her. I didn't ask questions. You didn't care, I said flatly. I cared about Sasha, she said. I still do. But I see now that I did it at your expense. And that wasn't fair. None of it was. She handed me the envelope. I didn't take it right away. What's this? Some money, she said. It's not a bribe. I swear. Sasha and I sold some jewelry and furniture when we thought we'd have to move her again. She didn't want to give it to you. But I told her it's not her choice. I finally took the envelope. Inside was about $1,200 in cash. I wasn't sure if it was meant to be compensation, restitution, or penance. But I took it. Not because I forgave her, but because I deserved every cent and more. We're not close, she said. We may never be. But I want you to know that I see it now. What we did. How wrong it was. And I'm sorry. For a moment, I felt a weird, hollow ache in my chest. I wanted to scream. I wanted to cry. But instead, I said, thank you for saying that. She turned to leave. Before she reached the stairs, I added, Sasha's never apologized. She just acted like the victim. Carla paused. She still thinks she is. Maybe one day she'll grow out of that. I wouldn't bet on it. Then she left. 2 months later, we won the civil case. Sasha never showed up to court again. My lawyer said it was a slam dunk. The judge ruled in our favor on every count: unlawful possession, damages, and intentional infliction of emotional distress. She owed me over $8,000 in damages. She didn't have it, of course, so she was put on a long-term payment plan. The judge said if she defaulted, her wages could be garnished or her tax return seized. When I got the first check, $75, but still, it felt like poetic justice. Sasha texted me the day after the ruling. Well, you happy now? You ruined my life. Hope the apartment was worth it. I didn't respond. Not because I didn't have things to say, but because silence was louder. A week later, I ran into an old friend from church. She looked surprised to see me and asked if I was back in town. I told her I never left. She blinked. Your mom said you were living with strangers in a shelter somewhere. That you were unstable and cutting off contact. I laughed out loud. Actually laughed. Well, I said. That's one version. I finally posted a full write-up of what happened to Reddit. Not for karma. Not even for validation. I just wanted the truth out there, somewhere. I changed the names. Left out specific locations. But I told it all, the way they stole my apartment, the gaslighting, the legal battles, the way my mother weaponized guilt while my cousin threw parties on my bed. It blew up. Thousands of comments. Messages of support. People sharing their own stories. Some DM'd me saying it inspired them to stand up to toxic family members. A few said they finally understood something that had haunted them for years. One comment stood out. It said, you didn't just reclaim your apartment. You reclaimed your self-worth. That's the real victory. They were right. Because it wasn't just the apartment. It was my life. My autonomy. My name on the lease and the legacy. It was the promise my great aunt had made when she chose me. She saw me. She knew I'd honor it. And I did. Not just with legal filings and eviction notices, but with fresh paint, secondhand furniture, and a stubborn refusal to let my spirit be bulldozed by guilt. These days, I'm doing okay. I found a better job, started therapy, and built a stronger circle of friends. I've gone low contact with most of my family. I still see Carla sometimes. She's trying, and I respect that. My mom still texts every few weeks, alternating between guilt and denial. I don't engage. Sasha? Last I heard, she was couch surfing. Blamed the courts, blamed me, blamed everyone except herself. Still thinks she's the one who got screwed. Let her think it. Because I'm here. In my home. With the door locked, the lights warm, and no one else's name on the mailbox. They tried to take everything from me. But I'm still standing. And they're the ones left out in the cold. Thanks for watching. Make sure to subscribe to the channel and hit the like button.